Is going on, everybody? Vlad with the Plotting Success podcast, and this is episode 1, our first ever, and I could not be more excited. The guest in the studio is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and probably one of the biggest personalities on social media when it comes to entrepreneurship, Mr. Ryan Pineda. Welcome in.
Dude, episode 1. I'm honored, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're on for episode 1 for a reason, actually. I mean, full circle moment for me, guys, is... I actually saw Ryan on a podcast back in 2019. So he was on, I think it was either Bigger Pockets or Real Estate Disruptor. Shout out Steve Trang.
Yep.
And I saw it. And at that point, I was just, in college. I didn't know what to do. And I ended up reaching out to Ryan. I tried to build a relationship with him. And he was like, hey, go find me deals. Basically, long story short, he became my first mentor in the business at that point in time and really took me under his wing, showed me the ropes. He wasn't as big on social media then, so he had way more time to spend with me in the office, and we were breaking down deals and going to appointments and negotiating with crazy sellers. But since then, I've been on this podcast twice. One time, first year in, second time, like 2.5 years in, and now starting my own podcast. You're the first guest. I'm honored. I appreciate you, taking the time.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. I remember the first time I think we had a deep conversation about it was at a bar you snuck into because you were in college, and I would hold these meetups at a bar. And, I think I remember telling you, I'm like, look, dude, I mean, you're in college, you got to make a choice. Like, you're going to go all in or not. Like, just pick, real estate can be great. But, and I know you were an athlete too. So, there's that idea of, man, am I going to quit sports? Am I going to, go all in at this? And I had to make the same decision. So, I think when I saw you originally, I related to your story a lot just because it was similar to mine. And so, it's just cool to see, the kids sneaking into a bar, not for the wrong reasons, but to, get into a real estate meetup and now being here.
No, absolutely. And I just, I always tell you how much I appreciate you, but definitely just want to give you your flowers for one, the amount of time you spent on, actually showing me the ropes, but then all the other people that you've impacted over the years with Future Flipper and all the stuff that you've done. So you've done amazing. So the biggest thing with this podcast that we really want to dive in on is strategic and intentional success, plotting it out, seeing the vision, then going out to get it. I think you're one of the best people to talk to as far as, strategic and intentional. Have you always been that way? Going back to, you starting in real estate, is that always the way you've been? And then it's just kind of grown as...
Yeah, it's hard to say because at this point in my life, I've started and tried many things. I mean, I've started so many businesses. I mean, I was a professional athlete. Like, you name it, I've probably tried it at some point. And I think some of them were probably more strategic than others. I think as an entrepreneur, when you first start out, you're more so like opportunistic is the right word. You're like, hey, this is an opportunity. Looks good. Let's do it. Let's try it. And if it works, great. If not, no big deal. And that's kind of how I've always operated. But I will say a couple of times in my life, I really felt like, I'm very open about my faith, but there's only a couple of times I really felt God was calling me to do it. And real estate was one of those things. Social media was one of those things. And at that time, neither of them were like what they are today. Right. Social media wasn't what it was today, 5-6 years ago. And I was introverted. I didn't really want to make content. Like, as you said, I wasn't like this big guy. I was on a podcast, but nothing crazy. But strategically, I just kind of saw the future. I was like, okay, like if this is going to be it, then I just need to go all in at it. I don't really know how it looks, but I'm going to do it.
Right. And when you were starting out, I think you dive into it, in a lot of different podcasts, how you were couch flipping and you were, a pro baseball player at that time, and then you went into real estate. Did you have like a mentor or somebody guiding you at that time, or how did you even get into real estate? I don't think you ever mentioned it. You kind of go from, hey, I was a realtor and I was couch flipping to boom, I flipped my first house. But how did that transition happen, from that initial time?
Well, I probably don't talk about it enough, but my mom was a realtor. So, I mean, she's been a realtor for 40 years. So it's not like I grew up in the business because I wasn't like showing houses and like I never cared about real estate. I was just always focused on baseball. Right. So I don't know how much influence that really had. When I turned 21, I got my real estate license because of her. because I saw the life that she had and I said, okay, well, she can work whenever she wants. That's kind of really all I was looking for, something I could do in the off season. So, I would say she was my first mentor in real estate in terms of just doing transactions. But, she wasn't an investor. She wasn't flipping and all that stuff. It wasn't until 2015, 5 years later after becoming a realtor, that I actually got into investing. And I wish I would have got a mentor earlier, because I basically spent 5 years just drifting, figuring out things. That's why I flipped couches. That's why I was doing random things just to make money, because I didn't really have a path. And honestly, the thing that kickstarted me was Bigger Pockets. You mentioned it. And that's why I was stoked, to get on their podcast a few years after the fact, because I read their books. I listened to all the podcasts. At that point, I think maybe they were 100 episodes in. So I listened to every single episode in like the span of 4 months. And, I was just, you saw before the show, I was talking to Grant Cardone, and he was one of those episodes. I remember it was like in 2015, I was like, wow, like if one day I could be like that guy, then this would be crazy, just dreaming. And I just absorbed every piece of information I could. And it was a little bit different back then in 2015. Mentors weren't like everywhere.
Right.
YouTube and all that stuff wasn't a thing. Nobody's just freely giving out game, and, podcasting. Bigger Pockets was it. That was the only real estate podcast. That was the only way I could learn about what people were doing. Other than that, there was like all those seminars and stuff. But at that time, Bigger Pockets and all these things were like very anti-guru. That was why like they blew up. And so I'm like, oh, I'm never going to do that. So, I never like did that mentorship thing on that front. I kind of like was self-taught in that way. And then I started going to networking events here in Vegas, and I met other cool guys here in town. Luke is a guy who here in town. He was really big at that time, like 10 years ago when I was first starting. So I remember I'd pick his brain, and I actually bought my first deal from him.
Okay.
And, I was like, hey, if you could show me the ropes on this deal, I'll buy it. And so he gave me some feedback on the deal and everything else. So that was cool. But yeah, I think along the way, I've kind of always just been really good at meeting people and then just developing really good friendships with people.
Yeah.
And it's more peer-to-peer mentoring than anything. And then obviously you'll get guys who are so far ahead of you, like Grant.
Right.
But still, we're friends. You can see, like, I've never bought his thing, whatever he sells. Like, I haven't paid $100,000 for whatever he has. Like, and by the way, you can't even buy what I just did.
Right.
Like, it's just friendship.
By the way, Grant just called Ryan on the podcast. So technically I did also have Grant on the first podcast.
You did.
Yes, basically. So no, I think that's super cool. So you basically kind of failed forward. You really never had that initial mentor. You were like, I'm going to figure it out. And then you were like, hey, just show me along the way. You're doing this. You're my age, or you're just a couple years older. You're cool. I'm just going to take a couple different things from you and put it into my business.
100%.
Really cool. Really cool. So I was stalking you a little bit, preparing for this podcast episode, and I went to Facebook, and you've been doing videos since like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would be sitting in the office you were talking about
random things.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was sick. It was like, hey, if you are, want to be a real estate investor, don't like diversify, like focus on rentals or flips or whatever. So what catapulted you? What was your biggest thing that was like Ryan Pineda in the office just doing content to like Ryan Pineda, Grant Cardone, same conversation?
It's funny. So actually, this goes back to the guy Luke I was telling you about. I remember one day, at that point, I had flipped maybe 5 or 10 houses. And he's like, dude, you should really do social media. I go, why? Dude, I wasn't a social media guy. And he goes, it's going to help you get deals. It's going to help you raise money. Like, people need to know what you're doing. I was like, oh, okay. And I literally just was like, okay, I guess I'll just make Facebook posts. All I had was Facebook at the time. So I'm just starting to post my flips and the deals that I'm doing. I'm just like doing breakdowns of them. I also at that time friend requested every realtor. So, you're telling me you guys do a lot of agent outreach. I was doing that 10 years ago in a completely different way, where I would friend request all these realtors. And back then it forced them to see your content once you became a friend on Facebook. And so then I realized like, oh, if I just become all their friends and I start posting my deals, they're going to know I do deals. And so within a year, I became like known in Las Vegas, and I started getting deals and stuff from all these people. And I started getting lenders, and, they're like, dude, I see you're everywhere. You're doing all these deals. And I'm just literally making like one post a week, and I'm everywhere. Right. And it was funny at that time too. I had no content team. There was no like courses or anything. And so I would just get my phone. I would put it on the table like this, literally just like this. And I would do it in one take because I didn't know how to edit. I didn't think editing was like, I didn't know that editing was a thing.
Right.
So I remember I'd be like 5 minutes in, I'd mess up and I'd restart. 5 minutes in, restart. And then once I finally hit it in one take, I would post it. No edits, just post. And what I didn't know that was happening during that time that was really good was I was learning to speak really well and do it on command with no notes or anything. And that prepared me for obviously like what I get to do today. So that content was really important. It helped me get a lot of deals. And at that point, I just wanted to like help people. I was like, and I didn't sell coaching. I didn't have anything. I'm just like, I don't know. I think this might help people. And, you know, that was how it all started.
Yeah, for sure. And basically, that's what you're saying. You kind of got into coaching at that point because you're putting out those videos. They're
the demand was
they're
there.
5 minutes long. People are like, I watched 5 minutes of this video, but I didn't get enough. I want more. Hey, can you teach me? And that's kind of when you started Future Flipper and doing all that stuff.
Yeah. And actually, I turned them all down for like the first 2 years. So 2016, I started doing that. 2017, I kept saying no. I'm like, no. If you want to do something, I'll help you out, but go out and like do something valuable. Because at first I was like going to coffee with everyone.
Right.
I realized that was like a waste of time because nobody ever did anything with what I told them. Then I actually went to a Grant Cardone event in 2018 and I saw a guy, Russell Brunson, who's now a buddy of mine. And Russell like really convinced me that being a guru was a good thing. Because at that time, I was still like in this, I call it the bigger pockets mentality, even though they're not really this way anymore. At that point, they were so anti-guru and everyone in real estate just hated gurus. And so I did too. I was like, nah, dude, like freaking, I'm not going to charge people and do this stuff. And eventually Russell convinced me otherwise. I was like, okay, mainly his message was, you know, there's somebody that you can help. And by you withholding information, not doing it, you're being selfish. And I was like, okay. So I write a book in 2018 called Flip Your Future. There was no coaching. I'm like, hey, if you want to learn how to do this, read this book. It has everything you need. And it still does to this day. You know, it's a good book that's just very tactical, step by step. And then I made a course to go along with it. And that was it. I did no coaching. There was nothing. It wasn't until maybe 2 years later that I finally started coaching people. So it was like a 4-year process before I ever really did it.
And was that something, you know, that was kind of strategic, or you were just like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. And then at one point you're like, okay, now it's like, I have no choice but to do it.
Well, what happened was, you know, I hear Russell Brunson's pitch and, you know, I hear about all these guys making all this money online. And I'm like, well, freak, if they can do it, I've done way more than they have, you know, in real estate.
Right.
I'd already flipped hundreds of homes at that point. Maybe, how many did I flip? Probably over 100 at least. And, you know, I write the book, I do the course, and then like the way that in my mind I thought it would work is I make a course and people just buy it and I make a ton of money. And it did not work that way. I sold one course my first year in the education business.
Right.
It was like $1,000 course. And I was like, okay, this sucks. Like I was making $1 million flipping houses.
Not quitting my day job.
Yeah. So I'm like, why am I going to, this sucks. Same thing happened in 2019. I'm like, maybe I need to run ads. I ran ads, made $0. I'm like, this sucks. You know, so 2019, I didn't really do it. It wasn't until 2020 when I got on TikTok and YouTube where the demand became so large. And I kind of like thought it might happen. And then also too, part of it was I always thought you had to coach people one-on-one. I didn't realize you could like do group coaching.
One to many, yeah.
And somebody explained that to me at the end of 2019. He's like, Ryan, you could just coach. Like, he's like, dude, we make 30, 40 grand a month doing group coaching. And I was like, you make 30 grand a month doing group coaching? I was like, that's crazy. Let's do it.
Right.
So I started a group coaching program, the All-Star program, which exists still to this day.
Absolutely.
You know, and that was the start of all of it. And I didn't run ads or anything for years. It was just all organic from content. And then, you know, now today it's a totally different beast. But yeah, that was kind of how it all began.
No, for sure. For sure. And now obviously that you've, you know, grown the social media and, you know, everybody knows you as the flipping guy, you know, the real estate guy and the wealthy, you know, the wealthy way guy. I mean, did you ever kind of envision, I mean, that was always the plan, but did you envision it to grow that fast, that quickly at this scale?
To be honest, yeah, I did. And that might seem cocky or arrogant, but I've always just I'm an athlete, so I'm competitive. So I remember the first day I was at Cardone's event in 2018. Okay. You got to remember, I just retired from baseball. I had been playing baseball and flipping houses at the same time. So I was already like pretty good at lots of things. And I remember all these guys coming out on stage, guys that I had literally no idea. Like Russell Brunson came out, Ed Milet came out, Ty Lopez comes out. Like all these guys come out. Everyone's going freaking nuts. I'm like, who are these guys? I've literally never heard of one person that's on stage. I only have heard of Grant from Bigger Pocket. I haven't heard of anyone else. And dude, people are just going nuts. And at that event, every single one of them's telling their story and their origin story and selling something and blah, blah, blah. And I'm literally thinking in my head, I'm like, none of these guys are anything special. That's just what was going through my head. And call it being an athlete, call it like whatever. But I was like, that's crazy that these guys are doing these kinds of numbers and they don't have any type of special talent. And you got to remember, okay, it's not in like a demeaning way, but in the world of sports, it actually requires natural talent.
Absolutely.
Right? The way you're born, your height, your speed, your strength, that can't be taught. It's just you got it or you don't. And so my whole life, I've competed against guys that I'm like, I ain't got it like that. You know, like this guy, bro, he could throw 100 miles an hour. This guy can hit it to the moon. There's nothing I can do about that. Like it is what it is, right? But when I hear these business guys, all of them short, you know, like no college. They're not super smart.
It's resourceful.
They're resourceful, right? They're not like the best looking. There's nothing naturally about them that makes them amazing, yet they're so successful. And so I looked at that not in like a comparison way, but in like a, oh, wow, like you don't really have to be that great to be great at this. It's very different than sports where you have to be born for this.
So if you're even a little bit good, then now you're way better than anybody else.
You'll dominate everyone.
You know.
So I looked at it and I was like, dude, I've already flipped 100 houses part-time. Played pro sports. I know I can speak well. I'm going to kill it. Like I just literally, that was my mindset. So, you know, I just kind of had this like vision. I remember looking around that day and I was like, okay, like this is the event. This is like my new arena. I'm going to get to the top. I'm going to be one of these guys. I made that decision back in 2018. I've got like notebooks. I've got like notes. I was like, I'm going to be these guys, not beat, but be one of these guys. And, you know, I set off and, you know, I'll be honest with you. It wasn't like my main focus. My main focus was still just doing real estate and doing deals and all this stuff. But it just was always something in the back of my mind like, hey, this is going to be a thing. I don't know when, but it's going to be a thing. And
took a couple of years, but
yeah, I mean, to be, 7 years later to where it's at today, yeah, I wouldn't imagine it was that quick because I was looking at it like very long term.
Yeah,
you know,
like Grant. I mean, Grant is much older. You know, so
he's in his mid 60s. All these guys.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't hear about Grant till 10 years ago or however long it was. So no, 100%. And now that you've exposed yourself to that kind of publicity and so on, you and I both know the haters are coming out. Grant has a ton of haters. You have a ton of hate. I'm sure I have haters, but it's not popular to hate on me. It's like it's popular to hate on you. And so I guess my question is, how do you deal with that? Does it bother you? Is it something that you had to kind of be like, okay, if this is the level I want to reach, I have to just be okay with it? Or I guess,
well, I think that's for sure true, right? No matter how big you get, the bigger you get, the more hate you get, right? I think about, if you want to be the president, half of America hates you, and then probably the rest of the world hates you too. So I mean, like that's the majority of the world hates you.
That's right.
Like hate. Not we're not talking like haters who just are little butthurt people, but we're talking like pure hate that hate like the president. You look at a guy like Elon Musk and how much hate he gets, right? How many lawsuits, and all this dude wants to do is freaking make the world a better place. Like this guy is creating all these things that are just making the world so much better for everyone, and people find a reason to be mad about it. So yeah, it's just, you got to go into it knowing that that's a thing, but that still doesn't change how you handle it. Right. So I remember when I first got started on social media, I was a big old hater, right? Like I'd be seeing guys like Dave Ramsey and I'm like, Dave sucks, this freaking thing, blah, blah, blah. And, now Dave's a friend and I've had him on the podcast and all these things. And like, I've matured and I've realized like, oh man, this guy's actually like a really, really good guy. And he's like helping a lot of people. And even though maybe his advice isn't like perfect for me, it's really good for a lot of people. And, so I just realized my evolution was I was a hater. And then eventually you start getting your own haters, and it gives you perspective of what it's like being hated on. You're like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't probably be this way. Right. And, then as time goes on, look, here's the thing. You're always going to have failure, right? And the bigger the shots you take, the bigger, your failures get. You know what? Just to put it back on Elon Musk, because let's just say, he's the richest man in the world. He's probably the greatest entrepreneur ever. And you look at the amount of failure he's had along the way. I saw like one thing when the market crashed, like Elon just lost $100 billion in his net worth. I'm like, dang, that's a lot. It's a lot. That's crazy. But you can't lose $100 billion unless you got a lot more than $100 billion, right? And so it's just like, yeah, as you take bigger shots, as you get out there more, it's just all going to keep increasing. And so you just kind of know that comes with it. The other hard part is too, like, do you let people who don't know you and whatever dictate what you do? Like, that seems really stupid, just logically. And so I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people try to please other people that they don't even know.
Right.
And a lot of people try to avoid difficult discussions or whatever. And, for me, I just kind of have always embraced just transparency. So when I fail, I've made plenty of videos where I'm like, yeah, this failed. This didn't work out, sucks. It is what it is. Like, here's what we're going to do, solve it, and here's the thing. When something bad happens, no one's ever happy. I'm not happy that it didn't work. Like, I wish it did.
Right.
I'd be freaking killing it right now if it worked. Right. And if it doesn't work and, you want to go find a solution to it, some people who are smart will understand. And then you get really, let's just call them people who are immature, who don't. And it is what it is, right? And so, I don't know. I just honestly, this is where I'm at today, and it could change. But I just now ignore everything. I don't post about it. I don't interact with it. I honestly don't even watch it. People will tell me about it, and I'll be like, all right, whatever. Like, do you want to see it? And I'm like, nah. Because at the end of the day, what good's it going to do me? Right? Is it just going to put me in a bad mood? What's the point? Why would I do that?
Right.
So I always tell people too, this has nothing to do with haters, but a big phrase I have, especially when we're doing our Christian events, is control what you consume. Because we live in a world that's so reactionary where, the moment I wake up, my phone's on, right? And whatever the algorithm feeds me is going to dictate my mood and how I react. And you have no control. The algorithm just shows you whatever, right? And so we wonder why people, are unhappy in their marriage. It's like, well, you're looking at half-naked girls all day, every day when, whatever. Of course you're going to start to be unhappy. Why am I not happy with how much I'm making? Well, you're just watching all these other people who are doing better than you. So now you think you suck. Why do I think everybody's out here killing themselves and they hate each other and, there's all this drama? Because you're just watching the news. Like, it's not like that. But the algorithm puts you in this echo chamber and it gives you what you desire the most. And so you have to start becoming intentional with what you consume. Instead of just being reactionary and letting the algorithm tell you how you're going to feel, you either just stop consuming crap and stay away from it, which is what I choose to do. I really am not on social media at all. I produce a ton of content, but I don't really,
Right.
I'm not on it. Because it's just, to me, it has no benefit.
Right.
What's the point?
Right. So as far as consuming, now I'm guessing your team focuses on what you're going to, because I guess a part of producing is figuring out what is popular and, making it, current events, et cetera. I'm guessing you have a whole team that's just researching and then just feeding it to you. You come in and I'll film it.
Honestly, we're getting better at that. But for the longest time, it was really just I show up and we wing it.
Okay.
Which, got pretty good results. And I think that as for me, I'm going to plateau that way. And so if I want to reach the next level, then I'm going to have to be more intentional and strategic, as we're talking about. So yeah, now I do have a team that they'll go find videos that I can react to. They'll go find topics. Like, I was going to go film some stuff before this and they're like, yeah, we saw, Ukraine and Russia are doing like this war's escalate. I'm like, I literally have no idea I wouldn't even know what to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm like, pass. Then they're like, okay, we saw Texas banned porn. And I'm like, really? I've never heard of that. And I'm like, I really don't, like, that'd be great if they did, but I don't have, like, I don't know what's going on.
Make it relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah, like, I don't know. So, it's also hard from that standpoint, because if you are going to react to news, you got to know what's going on.
For sure.
So, yeah. But those random things I don't pay attention to, but I was watching what was happening with the tariffs and interest rates, things that are applicable to me. I'm going to consume.
Control what you can consume. If you want to, whatever you want to consume, that's what you look at. Let's talk about real estate. I know for the longest time you were a flipper.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a flipper only, then you started wholesaling, then you're a flipper and wholesaler. You're the one that got me into flipping. You're like, dude, why are you wholesaling this? Like, you could be making way more money flipping. So that's what we started doing.
Yep.
Now we're a very pretty much balanced attack. I know for you, you've kind of gotten away from the flipping. I don't know if you're doing a ton of it this year. I know you wanted to, but I guess what does your, real estate future and like, what are you currently doing? What does that look like? What do you believe? Like, are you just wholesale heavy, wholesale only, or do you think, hey, you should wholesale and still, probably flip? Kind of what's your approach to it?
So let me put a disclaimer here, because I think a lot of people on social media don't understand this. Number one, all the strategies work.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I'm not anti-rental. I'm not anti-flip. I'm not anti-Airbnb. I'm not anti-anything. They all work. I am anti doing nothing or trying lots of things and wondering why you suck. All right. I'm pro do one thing and dominate. So for me, I got started flipping, and that was, my first hundreds of deals were just like all flips. And, I started doing Airbnb back in 2017, way before people were doing it. I was like, this Airbnb thing, it seems pretty smart. And it crushed, made millions doing Airbnb. And, now I don't. Now I don't like Airbnb. It's a different game than it was 8 years ago. And so, I still have a couple, but, I'm trying to sell them. And, I bought apartment buildings. We've done syndications. We've done creative finance. I've bought land. So, my perspective is based upon doing everything at a pretty high level, I would say. And here's the conclusion I've come to. Every person is in a different situation in life. And so you have to do the strategy that's best for you in your current situation. And so when I was first starting out, and when you were first starting out, the best thing we could do was build up our cash, right? And so, deals weren't just everywhere. It's not like you were getting, 4 deals, 5 deals a month. You're getting one deal. And so if all I'm going to get's like 2 deals this year, and the difference is I can make 20 grand versus 100 grand, well, I'd rather you flip those 2 deals. Right? At the same time, there's also this other variable. It's not just about you, but also what's happening in the overall market. And so if the market is in a very anti-flipping landscape, which right now it is, you got to take that into consideration too. It's like kind of like if you're playing sports, you got to understand your strengths and your team and what you guys do well.
100%.
But you got to also know the opponent, which in this case is the market. And so where am I at today? Well, market killed me in 2022 when they doubled rates. I had 50 flips going on. I mean, I freaking killed it for many, many years, making millions. And then, I lost a couple million because the market turned, and I didn't do anything wrong. It's just like they doubled rates out of nowhere. What are you going to do? It was 3% this whole time, and then all of a sudden it's 8%. I mean, they almost tripled it. So I told myself, I'm never going to put myself in that position again, because it was unnecessary. Like, I had all these other businesses that were also making a lot of money, and I had this one massive risk, $20 million of hard money and private money that I didn't have to be taking, because it's not like this was the only income I have and everything else. And so in hindsight, it was just dumb that I was taking on that much risk. And so after that, after learning the lesson, I said, I'm never going to put myself in that much risk again. It doesn't make flipping bad, right? Like, if all you know how to do is flip houses and you can go do 50, 100 of them a year, and that's like, you're not good at direct to seller, you're not good at sourcing your own deals, you're good at just buying off the MLS or from wholesalers, then look, that's the best thing for you. And you're going to have to take the risk that comes with it. But I know how to make money in so many ways that are way less risky, with way less headache and way quicker cash conversion cycles. So why am I going to do that? It's just kind of like a me-based thing. So today, man, I would guess 90+% of what we do is wholesale, or innovation. I'll only take on a flip in Vegas if it's like a home run.
Can't lose.
Yeah. And even then, I'll limit my home runs because I have a certain amount of debt that I want to have at all times where I'm like, hey, you know what? That's my max on debt. It's all good. You know, that's why I said, like, I find myself relating to Dave Ramsey more because that's how he became so anti-debt, because he was a house flipper and lost his butt. That's how he went bankrupt. He was a house flipper. And then, you know, he was a millionaire at like mid-20s, lost it all, went bankrupt, terrible life. And then he just realized he didn't want to do it anymore. And I'm not anti-debt like him. Like, I still take debt, but I'm like, I get what he's saying. I get it.
Well, the problem with debt on house flips is it's so market dependent. Like, if you took the debt and you knew that the market conditions were going to be the same every single time 12 months down the line, then there's no problem with that debt as long as you know what you're doing. But yeah, absolutely know everything that you're doing and still get your butt handed to you. Yeah. So,
and I'll just say too, I was forced to become a better wholesaler because look, when you're flipping every deal, a lot more deals make sense. When you have to wholesale, you got to create spread now. And so it forced me into doing innovations and all these things that now, quite frankly, a lot of our deals, we would make more doing innovation than we would flipping or wholesale. Like, so now I can get the best of both worlds. I can get a big payday with no risk.
Right.
And to me, it's just like, why wouldn't I do that business again? You know, it's like, this is when you start thinking strategically about a business opportunity overall. So like, okay, let me tell you why I got into social media. This will be relevant. So back when I first started social media, being on TV was like the main way people got famous in real estate. There wasn't like these big real estate influencers and stuff. So like TV shows, these were the biggest guys. And speaking on stages and all that stuff, right? And I always said, I was like, I ain't trying to do any of that. These guys work 80 hours a week to film a TV show that makes no money. It doesn't pay them anything. And I'm not leaving my family to go speak on stage and be gone 100 days of the year. That's stupid. And like, well, then you can't be known. I'm like, I think you can be known pretty good from just making good videos. Like, and I actually think you'll reach way more people than that. But that wasn't the normal way back, 2019. And, we start doing it. And I remember at that time, people were hating because, like, why are you making these TikTok videos when you're dancing and all this stupid crap? And, you should be focused on real estate. And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be pretty big. I don't know. We'll see.
I remember that, actually. That was pretty crazy. I had more TikTok followers than you at one point, and you're like, yeah, I'm on TikTok, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then you're like, whew. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, look, you don't know what you're doing, and you take a shot, and it works out. But here's the thing, right? It's a model that it allowed me to just be at home, never leave the family, reach way more people, millions of people versus 500 people in a room or whatever. And even TV shows, right? Like a good TV show might get like 100,000 like views. Like, it's nothing. I get that every day. So you just look at that and you're like, this is crazy, So for me, it's always just about, is there a better way to do this? And I think that that's what good innovators do. Like, is there a better way? I mean, even with how we've changed coaching, especially since you've been around, it is so different today than it was 2-3 years ago, because the market forces you to do that. And so I'm always willing to adapt my business plan. I'm always willing to cut something. I'm willing to say, hey, we started this thing with great intentions and, it had a success for however long, but this no longer is viable. And I think what like a lot of people, their problem is like they get caught up in, well, it used to work, maybe it'll keep working. And like my mind is just like, no, like it's done. Yeah. It is what it is. And I think like most people are too scared to pivot quickly.
For sure. Definitely. And with coaching, I think I understand how you guys switched the model. You guys switched more from let me educate you to let me educate you and help you do it. Do I have it right? That's kind of the way that you guys have structured it now, where you guys have, your guys' lead kitchen and stuff like that you guys are all doing.
Yeah, I'll tell you kind of, so we've done tens of millions in coaching over the years. And the original model, which is like most coaching models, is like, hey, it's high ticket, it's 10, 25 grand. And, each one has like different things and group coaching and masterminds and, all this cool stuff. Right. And we'll teach you how to do it. And we've taught a lot of people like you and whoever else, right? And it's been great. But I realized towards the end of 2023, I noticed sales and everything else just continuing to go down. And I was like, like, do my salespeople just suck? That's like your first instinct as a business owner. You're like, the sales team's not getting it done. Like if you have a bad month of getting deals, who are you going after?
Sales team.
You're going after the sales team, right? And so I friggin' went after them and I ran a lot of them off. And I had to take a reality check after a few months and really be like, oh no, like this is the market right now. And I talked to a lot of my other friends because, when I first asked them, they're like, no, we ain't seeing nothing that's good. And I'm like, like, is it just me? Like, I don't know, because I feel like I've got better things than most people. So if I'm struggling, that's always my indicator. I'm like, if I'm struggling, I got to imagine what other people are going through because I have more tools, resources than most. So eventually, after like 90 days or so, now my friends are coming to me, big people, and they're like, hey, like, so what are you seeing? And I'm like, bro, I told you that 90 days ago. Like, this is like, I think it's going down. Like, I think that people are not like wanting this anymore. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And this is like cycles of any business, right? Like things have runs and, you got to pivot and adapt. It's like, when we look at real estate, I've been in this for 15 years now. I remember when I first started in 2010, everyone just bought from the auctions. That was it. Everyone would just buy from the auctions. It was great. And then eventually BlackRock and all these guys came in, Blackstone, and they wiped every flipper out at the auction. So then flippers started doing short sales because that was a huge thing in 2020 or 2012, 2013. That's the massive thing for a couple of years. Then it's not. Then there's this thing. Then there's cold calling. I mean, I was cold calling back in like 2018. It was like this massive thing.
Texting.
Then it wasn't. And then I was doing TV commercials for many years. Crushed it till it didn't. Now I do Facebook ads. They crush it until they won't. At some point, they will stop. And it's all good. Like, because I just know that everything has a cycle. So anyways, why did I bring all that up? So I just noticed that the education space is changing. And part of that is twofold. I feel like people are just tired of coaching the way that it was because people have bought programs and everything else, and it doesn't seem like much different. Information is becoming less and less valuable because it's more just readily available.
Right.
You can go on this, YouTube, whatever, right? So it's like, okay, information's not that valuable anymore. 3, the real estate market itself sucks. So, I mean, if you're selling a real estate product, kind of hard like to get people riled up about real estate when real estate's going down.
Right.
4, with just everything overall, it's like, man, it was just like all the storms combined. And so, I had to make the choice. I had to say, man, we've been so successful doing it this way for so long. What are we going to do different? And so 2024, I basically started from scratch. And I said, I'm going to test everything imaginable to see what the market wants. Not what I want, but what does the market want? And so I started first off doing $97 a month things to see how that goes. I tried that for like 4-5 months because everybody was like hyping it up. I'm like, this sucks. But it did teach me the principle of recurring revenue and why it's so important. So then eventually I figured it out. And what I realized was people always want coaching. They always want help, like, a one-on-one coach to help them do deals. So like, okay, cool. I understand that. But what people will 100% always pay for are the services. So no matter what, you're going to have to buy leads. No matter what, you need a CRM. No matter what, you need a software to analyze deals and skip trace and all those things. Either way, you're going to pay a hard money lender to do your deal, regardless. Either way, you're going to pay a title company. These are unavoidable costs. Honestly, the consumer does not care where they buy them. They're just going to buy them. So I said, okay, well, you don't have to convince people to buy those things. They have to buy them.
They already use them, yeah.
But you do have to convince people to join masterminds and be coaching and all that. So I said, what if I just combine them all into one thing? For the same price you would have normally paid for coaching, what if I just give you all those things? And on top of that, what if instead of doing it the high ticket model for so long, $10,000 to $25,000, what if I just did monthly, no contracts, just like you would for any service? And that's when everything changed, because all of a sudden I took, our programs that, you needed $5-10 grand up front to join. And so you can join for $1,000.
Made it way more accessible to way more people.
And especially in a time where people don't have a lot of money because the economy sucks and, the market's tough. And so it scooped up all of these people that nobody was meeting a need for. And then on top of that, you think about the stickiness. If I'm giving you your CRM and you love it, and I'm giving you your software to analyze deals and find buyers and find, seller information, and then I'm giving you leads every single month that are converting, you're never going to switch.
Right.
And at that point, what happens is the business reverses. It doesn't become an education company. It becomes an all-in-one platform, and it becomes more of the services are what we're buying. The education just is so that you can use the services properly.
Right.
And that's what SaaS companies do too.
It's kind of like support. It's now the support to
it's not the main thing.
Yeah.
It's the support of the things that they're going to buy regardless. So,
smart.
Yeah, it's drastically different today. And the thing that it does too is like we've grown faster now than ever before. And, it's more profitable than ever before. Student success is way higher than ever before. And also too, you're building now truly like a business that has enterprise value if I ever did want to sell one day.
Right.
Because now it's truly a recurring revenue business. It's not like, because this is the problem again with coaching programs. If you ever wanted to sell it, once I teach you how to flip a house, why do you need to keep paying?
Right.
I already taught you the deal, right? Like I could keep you paying maybe by the mastermind or whatever else.
Yeah, your churn is crazy because it's like
everyone's coaching churn is crazy because, you gave them the thing they wanted. Great. You delivered. But they don't need you anymore. Like you gave them what they needed.
They're done, yeah.
But that's not the case anymore because not only are we teaching you and training you and giving you community and masterminds, but I'm giving you all the tools you need regardless.
Right. And if you stop now, then you stop doing deals because you're doing deals using our stuff.
And that's the thing, right? So they're either staying because they have a business and they're doing well, or they're literally just don't have a business.
Right.
Like they're just not in this game.
Right.
So, now the business is so much better today, but it took a lot of pain and it took me like really investigating what the market demanded in this time. And I've seen so many of my friends who are in coaching, they don't have coaching programs anymore.
Yeah. Do you feel like obviously you guys have transitioned more from, how it used to be Future Flipper, all-stars. It would be, you had to do a certain amount of deals in order to make it. Now it's more catered to the beginner, obviously. You're trying to build up their business basically on your backbone.
Well, and here's the thing too, right? Ego-wise, you're like, I want to help the biggest people scale and, all this stuff, right? And
not that many of them.
So, you go to this situation and one thing that you would do in any business that you would start is look at the TAM, the total addressable market, right? And this is where a lot of businesses fail. So when you think about the TAM of something, okay, let's just say, actually, I'll give you a great example of this, okay? We're not even talking high-level wholesalers. The TAM of people who wholesale right now, this very moment, is about 200,000 people. That's the total addressable market of wholesalers, okay? Now, how many of those wholesalers are like legit guys doing big deals? Let's call them like 2,000.
Yeah.
Right? 1%. I would say that the 1% are those people we are talking about, okay? And by the way, a lot of the 1% has gone through one way or another through what we've done, okay? So with that, am I going to cater to 2,000 people and try to grow a business that way? No, that's stupid. Am I even going to cater to 200,000 people? No, that's also stupid because that's not that many people, okay? So where do you go? Well, you keep going upstream. This is like why big companies want to know, like, how big can this be? Like Uber and Lyft can be big because everyone needs a ride.
Right.
Okay. Tesla can be big because everyone needs a car. So you're always limited by your TAM. So what's cool about what we do now is instead of just only going after wholesalers, right? I go after anyone who is an opportunity seeker because that TAM is about 20 million people. There's about 20 million people who are interested in buying real estate of some kind, right? They don't know yet. They might want to do Airbnb. They might want to flip, wholesale, buy multifamily. Like they're just like, look, I want to buy real estate. That's about 20 million people. There's also, in that mix, a bunch of people who are just like, look, I'm down to make money however. Like I'll do real estate. I'll do an MLM. I'll do...
I've been there.
Yeah, like I'm down for whatever. Just tell me how I can make money and I'll do it. It's like Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
Like they're like open to anything.
Show me the check.
Yeah. I'll be a high ticket closer. I'll be whatever, right? So all of those people are candidates to wholesale, right? And if that's my market now, 20 million people, my leads are going to cost less to acquire, to get in front of those people because there's so many of them. And yeah, they're all beginners, right? Because they're looking at this as a new opportunity. But I would rather go after them and, from a business perspective, have this massive ocean of people that you can attract. But also, too, from the perspective of, I get way more fulfillment helping a guy like you get your first deal. 100%. Now, is it awesome to go help you scale and everything? Yeah. But, man, helping people get their first deal,
life-changing.
It changes their lives. It changes, and it's not just their life. It can change generations.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's what happened to me. That you showed me how to fish, and I went out to fish. I started getting my own deals. Now it's changed the life of the people around me as well. So 100%. I 100% agree with you on that.
But I'll just say, too, it takes putting away your ego to kind of go for that, because I remember when I first started, I'm like, dude, no, I want the best of the best people to be in my thing. And, for a while we did that. And,
almost like a club.
Yeah. And it's like, you want this and it's great. But at the same time, it's like, do I want to teach brand new people all the time the same basic things? And the answer was no, originally. That's why I only did All-Star that way. But eventually you learn how to run a business. You're like, oh, I can just get coaches and they can go teach them all the basics every single day and walk them through all these things. And, that's what I do. So I still don't teach the basics.
Right.
I do my All-Star call. I only talk about what I feel like talking about, which is high level stuff, not how to run comps and find buyers and, all these things. And so I still get to do what I want to do, but we still also get to help the people we want to help.
Yeah, you get to help beginners. Cool. And another question, I guess one of the lead up questions, we're, close to finishing up here, but strategically, I want to ask you a strategic question as far as social media goes. One, I'll get value out of it, but I'm sure other people will as well. You caught the social media wave, I think, right around the time when you should have, which is end of 2019, 2020.
Great timing.
Now, perfect timing. Yeah. And a lot of the times it's all about timing. People had no choice but to sit in quarantine and watch you, watch your videos. Mm-hmm. You caught them perfect time. Nowadays, I do see a lot of your content. You always say content and videos is not the best for a lot of people anymore.
Yeah.
Can you kind of expand on that? And how would somebody like myself or somebody that's looking to grow the social media, how would they strategically do it? Do you still think it's a great time, or is it only a great time if you're actually running an active business and you're just documenting?
Yeah. So good question. So this all goes back to kind of what I was saying about, hey, something can be really good, for however long it is, and then it's no longer good. Right. And, you used to be at my brokerage, I think, right?
I was at the brokerage.
Yeah, you were at the
rubber home when you first started.
Yep. So, we built it up to 200 agents and pretty much with very little effort too.
Mm-hmm.
And it just no longer became a good opportunity as other opportunities presented them. So I'm like, dude, why do I have all these agents here? This is just a waste of resource,
right.
And we don't barely make anything off of this. I bring that up because another business I had was Wealthy Creator. And, we had that for a couple of years and, we taught tons of people how to do social media, made a lot of money doing it. And it was awesome. Lots of people have gone on from that, some big podcasters and people that you see today. And people are like, well, Ryan, why stop it? Why are you, flip-flopping? Essentially, I'm like, I'm not flip-flopping. It's just not a good opportunity anymore. It just isn't. You should have been on TikTok when I told you in 2020 and in 2021. And in 2022. And, when I was telling you, should have started the podcast 4 years ago when I told you to do it and when I was doing it. And, I've been saying the same things. And now I'm saying, hey, it's way different today. I had Ty Lopez on my podcast and he said something that was kind of astounding. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, actually, he's kind of right. He goes, today, to build a big, big personal brand, it's going to cost you $50 million. And I was like, $50 million? What is this guy talking about? And he goes, think about it. You're going to have staff and team and all that stuff. Okay, that's not going to cost you $50 million. I'm like, where's this coming from? He's like, well, you think about it, to be seen. Yeah, you're going to have organic. You're going to do all that. But, you're going to run paid ads. You're going to run, PR stuff. You're going to do all these things. And, you're not going to spend it in 1 year, but it's going to take time to build that. And then I started to reverse engineer. I was like, how much have I spent over the last 5 years on advertising, content, wealth cons, events, things that have built my brand. It's tens of millions of dollars. And I was like, and it was cheaper to go buy, influence when I was doing all that, right? It's more expensive today.
Less competition.
Yeah. I was like, he's actually right. Like, and it depends what's big, And I always tell people too, I go, think about like even just the last couple of years. I think in 2020 to 2022, 2023, you had a lot of new people come on the scene. Okay. So I'll take a step back and give the history of how I saw it back then. Up to that point, you did not really have entrepreneurs on social media. I call it like the old regime. You had guys who were like OGs, like Gary Vee, Patrick Bet-David, Grant Cardone, and these guys are older, right? I mean, they're all 50 plus. Okay. And they were like the original guys on social media for entrepreneurship, and they were it. There's not like, there wasn't many of them. Ty Lopez, he's another one, right? Then eventually people got tired. Well, I don't want to say they got tired of them because they're all still big to this day. But then eventually what started to happen was you started to get true, just pure content creators who were not entrepreneurs. And they actually started to do better than them. So you got guys like my friend Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin and any of these YouTubers podcasters, like all these people who are like, they make content for a living. Mr. Beast. And they profit off of the content, right? Then you see all these up and coming entrepreneurs like myself, or a Hormozy or a Cody Sanchez, or, like all these people who came after 2020, because you see the opportunity. You're like, wait a minute, all these guys are making all this money and they don't even really know business. And yet they're talking about it and they're not even doing that much. So this is crazy. What if we actually just come on and run our businesses and talk about it? And that's what you saw from 2020 to 2022, 2023, these younger, let's call them in their 30s, not 50s, creators / entrepreneurs come on the scene, and they do great, and it helps their current businesses. They do coaching, they're getting views, they're helping people, it's great. And that's been awesome. But when I look at 2025 and even 2024 in that arena, I'm like, how many people have you seen pop up on the scene that are new, that you've never, they just came out of nowhere? And I can't say there's that many, as many as there were before. So it's like what I see happening is, maybe I'll call it like the Hollywoodization of social media. It used to be this environment where anybody could pick up a camera and like potentially go viral, like I did on TikTok.
Right.
That don't work.
Now you got to pay to play, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, you have to have a legit team, legit content, money behind you. And guess what? Even if you have all that, you still have tons of competition with people who've been doing it longer, who have brands, and who are actually just better than you. Their content is better. And people have this limited time, right? Okay. Now I'm going into a lot of different topics, so I'm going to try and like tie all these together. The only currency that is truly limited in this world is attention. All right. Money is not limited. There's plenty of money out there. Everyone understands that. They can print it at will, but you can't print more attention from Vlad. You got to work. You got to sleep. You got to go spend time with family. You might have, call it a couple hours a day that you truly can just go watch content. I think the average American is like 4 hours a day that they can consume content. And so when you think about that, we're not just talking about watching my YouTube videos or this podcast. We're literally talking everything in the world that they could consume. Netflix, Disney, YouTube, podcast, books, any sports. They're all competition. They're all competing for the same 4 hours. And guess what? Before all these YouTubers and Netflix and all this content, everybody watched the same stuff. There was just TV, that's why Hollywood and movies and all this stuff are so big. The reason theaters and TV and all this stuff are dying is not that they suck. It's because there's so many options now, right? Like I was looking through Netflix the other day. I was like, there's nothing to watch. And I'm thinking, how stupid is that? I'm saying there's nothing to watch on Netflix. Netflix has like 1 billion freaking shows to watch. And I'm over here saying there's nothing to watch, meaning I have so many options. I don't like one out of a million options here on Netflix, so I'm going to go check out Prime or my favorite YouTuber or whatever else. That's freaking crazy. And on top of that, it's only going to get worse. Everybody is spending more and more money on content. They're talking about this Summerlin Hollywood here, in Vegas, right? They're going to keep producing. They're going to content's going to keep going. So, but that 4 hours is not changing.
Right.
People still got to work. They got to sleep. They got to enjoy life. So it's going to keep getting more expensive, and it's going to keep getting more valuable. Those eyeballs are going to continue to get more valuable. And so where does that leave everything? I guess at the end of the day, it's not to point a dark thing. It was your first episode. So you're like,
you're shutting it down.
Bro, you know what? This ain't worth it. So what does that mean? Well, it just means that if you're going to create, don't look at views as the metric, because every view is going to become more and more valuable. So it's like, oh, if my videos used to get 50,000 views and now they get 10,000, did I just get worse at content? No, there's just so many more options that these views, these people are watching and everything else. I could remain the exact same, but it's spread out more. But because views are just spread out more across everybody, right? It's just going to cost more and more to get those one views, because those views are highly valuable. They're highly valuable for your business. So, you could get 1,000 people who watch this episode, 1,000 views, and they'll be super highly valuable for you as lenders, as deals, as everything else. So I wouldn't say don't do it. I'm just saying the game is so different than what it was before. Now, the best advice I can give, because that was your original question, was, somebody starting today, how should they do it? Everything else. First, I would say, I would not get into content as a business person if you're not actually good at business. Okay. I see a lot of young kids who are like, dude, they grew up in this content era. They're like, yeah, dude, I'm going to document my thing. And I saw this one kid, he interviews rich people on the street and all this crap. And I'm like, yeah, no one cares about him, right? They care about the rich people that he's interviewing, right? How does that help you? All right. You need to be the star. That's the point. If you're ever going to monetize it in any measurable way, you need to be the star. And the only way you're the star is if you actually have things that you can talk about from your experience, and you yourself are valuable. You can be a great interviewer and get a lot of views, but it's not going to pay you the way of just actually being really good at what you do and teaching people what you do and what you know. So that's number one. I think you're far more, if you're now look, if you're going to go be an entertainer like Mr. Beast, then that doesn't matter. Make content, because that's the thing. But if you're going to be in this business space, you better freaking know what you're talking about, because ain't nobody going to listen to you. It's so easy to, this is another funny thing off topic, but whenever I hear people talking about, oh yeah, these people faking it with Lambos and, selling their courses and all this crap, I think that's an old stereotype. I actually don't think that really exists the way that people think. It's like a stereotype from 10 years ago when that was the thing. But today, I really don't see that. I don't see young idiots, who are faking it that everyone knows, and people aren't dumb.
Yeah.
So I don't even really think that that's a thing anymore. So you kind of have to be good at business to win. Now, if I was advising you, I'd say, okay, you clearly know what you're doing in business. You've done millions of dollars in deals, became a millionaire really young. It's awesome. So the next question is, okay, you have track record and credibility to that degree, right? What are you going to do to differentiate yourself, right? Why is somebody going to watch Plotting for Success over Patrick Bet-David show or Hormozi show or my show or whoever show? Because that is the competition.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter. You got to figure out, how am I going to differentiate? Because they are comparing watching yours to those. It's like the big leagues. This is not anymore oh, I'm in Vegas and I'm I'm a big fish here in Vegas. This is great. I'm competing against this guy for the deal, but everyone knows I'm the guy, here in Vegas. It ain't like that on social media. You're competing against the world. So now we're in the big leagues. How am I going to stand out against big league talent? So that's the first question you'll have to ask yourself. The second question, I asked you this before, was, what are your goals from this podcast? What are you really hoping to get out of it? And so I think you got to reverse engineer what the end goal is for this podcast. And what you're trying to achieve. I'll tell you, for me, my end goal with the podcast is that I've always just used it to build great relationships. And, you know, I'm friends with almost everyone now. And I would attribute a lot of it to the podcast, maybe like 90%. But here's the thing. In order for them to come on the podcast, right, the podcast has to be worth their while.
Absolutely.
And so you have to make it worth their while, right? Especially if they're going to fly in or, you know, whatever the case is. So just know the end goal for it. And then I would say the third thing is, like anything else, set a budget, both in money and time. You know, how much resource am I going to devote to this? I remember when I first started, I was like, I am going to spend 10 grand a month. This is back in 2020. I'm going to spend 10 grand a month and 30 hours a week. I told myself that's what I'm going to do. And there's going to be another cost. That's not the only cost. It's going to cost me deals I could have been getting over here by choosing this path. So there's now opportunity cost. And it lost money, like in that sense, in the early stages for many months. You know, I remember the first time I got monetized, it was like 4 months in, and I'm like, oh, dude, I could buy like a burrito. This is great. You know, like I've only lost, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals that I could have been going on appointments and getting, but I was willing to, you know, eat that cost, and because I knew the upside of it. So you got to decide, you know, because it's not free to do, both in time and money. So what are you willing to actually put into this? And then when you decide that, you got to say, okay, is it all worth it? You know, if that's all I'm willing to do, what's the payoff? And I've had that kind of conversation with myself in many different endeavors of my life. You know, I'm like, really, I love golf. And it's like I'm like, am I having a second awakening? Like, am I going to like try and be like a professional and like go long drive and all this crap? And then I just started thinking about it. I'm like, what's the cost to really do this? And then I look at the cost. I'm like, yeah, that's impossible. Like, no. And then I'm like, but what if I was a golf YouTuber? Those guys also kill it. And like, I already do it. I got a team. I know content. We'll be a golf YouTuber. And then I start like thinking about it and the cost. And I'm like, okay, the financial part of it's whatever. But to be a great golf YouTuber, you got to travel nonstop to the craziest courses in the world. And like, I'm like, I can't do that. You know, I got fourth kid on the way and like a business. And so it's not realistic. And so you run the numbers and time and money and you're like, yeah, this ain't gonna happen. It's not in the cards.
Right. Nobody wants to see you play Southern Highlands 5 days.
100 days. Yeah, like it's just not gonna happen.
No, definitely. No, I think that's great advice. It's definitely going to take some time, some money, and you got to differentiate yourself. Like you said, it's just everybody is competing for the same pie, and you're competing with Gary Vee. Then it's like he's got 15 years of credibility on you, you know, right there and then. So, 100%. Cool, man. So I really appreciate your time. I think last question before we, wrap it up. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but what's next for you? What's next for Ryan Pineda? I mean, you've been growing. I think the one thing that I can attribute to you a lot of times, like I said, you're so strategic and you've caught all these trends. Sometimes I'm like, man, I should have just done what Ryan did. Because honestly, he picked up on it, earlier. So I guess what is the next 5 years is too long, but what's the next 2 to 3?
What are the next trends I'm looking at?
Yeah. What does the next 2 to 3 years look like for you? And what are you looking to accomplish? What are you building towards?
So let me add this with trends. So yeah, I'm watching like for trends and hearing feedback and what people are saying and talking about and all these things. And that's another benefit of the podcast is when you talk to so many people, you can start what do they call it? Consolidating and, taking bits and pieces from everyone.
Social proof from other people?
Well, it's not even social proof. It's just, I take all these bits and pieces of information and then I create my own, thesis of like, oh, okay, Grant said this, he said that, I had this conversation with him. They're all saying varying degrees of this idea, but no one has the full puzzle. And I feel like I'm able to put the puzzle together from hearing like lots of ideas. But anyways, what I would say is in order to catch trends, you have to try all the trends. And here's the thing, when you try, a lot of them don't work. If you were to go look at Gary Vee's like predictions, I mean, he's hit some really big ones. I mean, he was telling everyone about TikTok a long time ago. He was telling people about this thing, that thing, all this stuff. And, you can also see a bunch that didn't hit, but he freaking believed it. He went full hearted at it and everything else. And, you just got to understand that if you're going to actually catch trends, it's not like, oh, you bat 1,000. You have to try the trends and really see them through. And so for me, when I look at trends and, you're like, dude, you're always catching the trends. It's like, yeah, the ones that have worked, you'll remember me for, and the ones that didn't, you won't. Like,
that is very true.
So, just remember that, like, in order to be great in, foretelling, you have to try lots of things. And so, for example, even like as I'm talking about Gary Vee, like he's huge on NFTs. He killed it with NFTs. A lot of people don't like him for his NFT. I feel like our NFT was a big success. And then, now people are hating and they're pissed, and it is what it is, right? But I think everyone thought at that time it was going to be this massive trend. And it turns out, I mean, time will tell in the long run, but it doesn't look like the trend that everyone thought it would be.
Right.
What are you going to do? At the end of the day, you're going to take your chance, because if it does end up being that trend,
it could be life-changing. It could be huge.
Billionaire, like whatever, right? Like Gary Vee thinks like his thing is going to be a billionaire thing, like still, even to this day, like he believes that. So you have to take the chance, and then you got to also be okay with the outcome if it doesn't work out. And so, like I'm facing repercussions for it not working out, and it is what it is, right or wrong, right? It is what it is. So for me, when I look at what trends are emerging, what I'm betting on, I think that one was the services of education. That is a huge trend. Like I'm like pretty 100% certain that most education companies are going to transition this way, where the education is not the main thing. The services are the thing that the education services or supports. And it's going to take one person like doing it really well at a high level for everyone else to copy. So hopefully I'm that guy, right? Like that's the hope. And whether it's just they hear about what we do, or maybe, one day I sell the company for this crazy multiple and everyone's like, freak, dude, we need to build the next one in the HVAC industry and the gym industry and this industry, right? So I think that in the education space, that's a thing. I think that obviously AI is a thing, right? Everyone's talking about AI. It's crazy. I'm experimenting with so many things in AI for our ads. Maybe you've seen them, but like I'll have anime ads. I'll have like all these crazy ads, and some of them work really good.
Yeah.
I think eventually, this is also why building a personal brand is valuable. I think that this is going to be a trend in the foreseeable future, but your own personal IP is going to be really valuable. So let's just take back to the wealthy investor example. Before it would have been like a very negative thing of like, oh, well, it's attached to you. You can't sell a company that's so dependent on you. But I think with AI, that won't be the case. I actually think that you'll be an asset to the company in digital form. So I think that, let's just say, I don't know, one day I sold it and they're going to be like, okay, well, Ryan, we know you don't have to work there, but we want to use your likeness and ads and everything else. We want to build an AI Ryan, bot to answer all the questions that students have and all this stuff, right? That's a valuable thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so you sign a deal with them, whatever, and you're like, hey, for the next however many years, you can use my likeness in AI to continue running the ads and everything else, so I don't have to do it.
Wow.
So I think that brand is going to become highly valuable in that way. And I've never heard anyone really talk about it yet, but I'm only thinking about it because I'm like in it, experiencing it. And I'm like, right now I'm the face, I run all these ads and everything, but we're building it this way. If I was a buyer, what would I want to see? I'd want to see Ryan continue on in the company. But what if Ryan doesn't? Well, we have this new...
What if he can?
What if he can do it without us having to get him to do anything?
Right.
We can just do it whenever we want and update the ads. And I'm like, that would be a win for everyone. So I think that you'll see that happen at some point. And versions of that, like just period, right? That's one use of an IP AI. I'm seeing these people like start OnlyFans with these fake girls and like random AI things. Like it's crazy. So I think digital people are going to be really valuable. And I was actually talking to somebody about this. I forgot what episode it was on, but they were like, do you really think people are going to follow these AI influencers? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, why? Dude, we already do it. Like, you telling me who's a fan of Iron Man and Batman and Pokemon? These are all just IP fake things that people love.
100%.
You're just creating video game people. like, it's no different.
It's going to take that one, like you said, one to go viral or, get a crazy amount of viewership or whatever. Yeah. And then everybody's going to be like, wow, that's like the new wave. I could see it.
I just saw they released this Google, I don't even know how you pronounce it, Google Veo or something. And it looks so real. It's crazy how real it looks. And I'm like, how is this going to change Hollywood? This is crazy. And also, too, how's it going to change YouTube? Because when you got a guy like Mr. Beast who has to spend, hundreds of millions of dollars to do sets and make his content and all these things, somebody else is going to go make some fake one that looks identical for nothing.
No, I know. Crazy.
So I think there's a ton on the media landscape, which then goes to, now we got more attention to compete for because people are creating content so effortlessly with AI. So now it's just like those views become more valuable. So
at that point, does it make the real stuff more valuable? That could be another whole question. Then we revert right back from the AI because people are like, everybody's doing. Nowadays, you could, maybe it's just not good enough, but right now you could tell when people are doing like the AI content and they're.
Yeah, but it will be good enough.
Right,
it'll be better too.
Yeah.
I think another trend, this will be for the real estate people, is a lot of real estate investors, they're concerned about, well, maybe they're not yet, but they should be, is supply, right? Everyone's like, oh, there's not enough homes out there. And right now, we're kind of in a buyer's market and, we got more supply than demand. So it's like, that's not even really true right now. But eventually what's going to happen is, and I don't know if this is going to be the tech, but 3D printing, let's just say that ends up being the tech that we use, is going to be able to print homes in, like a day or a week, right? So when that happens, there's not really a supply issue anymore. And the thing with technology is it always gets better and it gets cheaper. So, when you look at anything in the world, when it first launches, it's so freaking expensive. Like a cell phone was a block and it was like 10 grand. And now you have an iPhone, which is like quite arguably the greatest piece of technology ever, right? Then it's 1,000. You look at these TVs, plasma TVs were like 10 grand. Now you go get like a 80-inch for $500 that's this thin, So technology keeps getting better for cheaper. So it actually creates a more abundant world. And what I think happens is the biggest problem in society right now, hands down, is the cost of living. That is what causes everyone so much stress and so much headache because a home is like half of most people's income. Like on a monthly basis, your home probably takes up half of your income. And that's stressful. And 3D printing is going to get good enough where they're able to produce homes for cheap and quickly. And it's going to make housing really, really cheap. I don't know when this is going to happen, but it is going to happen at some point. And that's going to be probably the biggest innovation for society because that's our biggest cost right now. And when you think about, the next argument to that is, well, like, so does that mean all housing prices are going to go down? Not necessarily.
Because you can no longer build like on the coast, in certain areas, like
right.
That's going to make it even more expensive.
Yeah, like at the end, those houses are what they are, and they'll always be there, and they are worth what they're worth. But here in Las Vegas, right, dude, we have so much land.
Yeah.
On the outskirts, you can buy this land for nothing. Go plump some homes all over it. These 3D printed homes, have a home for 50 grand, right? And you're just 30 minutes away from the strip.
Right.
People are going to do that. And those homes will actually be better. They're going to have more technology. They're going to be more durable.
Smart homes.
Everything's going to be better in it too.
Right.
So that's going to happen. I don't know when it happens, but I think it'll happen sooner rather than later. And then that opens up the door for all these other things that you see Elon even talking about where,
nobody owns a car.
Yep.
Everybody drives a Tesla around. You get picked up. You don't.
But people don't even think about the other ramifications of that. So, and this is why I don't know where it all goes because there's so many trickle down effects. But if you don't have to own a car anymore, right? That's $1,000 a month that you don't have to pay, plus insurance, plus gas, plus you need a garage in your home, plus you need a parking space at work and all these things. So now parking lots become irrelevant. Garages become irrelevant. Insurance becomes irrelevant for cars. Like there's this Uber and Lyft and taxis become irrelevant. GM and all these companies that sell cars don't really sell cars in that way anymore. Like I don't know when that happens. Elon seems to think it happens sooner than later, but like, I think big picture, this is not 5 years from now, but big picture, like, I actually think it becomes illegal to drive.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. It'll be illegal because
It's going to be so much safer.
Yeah.
Right now we have all the DUIs and stuff like that.
it'll be way safer and it's way cheaper. It'll cost you like $100 to have a rideshare subscription. And like the fatalities will be like nothing because everybody's in this environment and they're all controlled. So yeah, I don't know. Right now I'm like looking sci-fi future wise, but like those are some of the like big picture things that I don't really know how they get solved, but they are better for society.
100%. 100%. I mean, immediate future, keep building the personal brand.
Yep.
Long-term future, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Cool, man. So, yeah, I really, like I said, appreciate your time. Thank you for being the first guest, on the Plotting Success podcast. I think, people are going to really, really enjoy this one. Like I said, you were a huge influence on me and a lot of other people that got into real estate investing at that particular time. So, big kudos to you and appreciate you coming on. And, any last words?
Yeah, I would just say for anyone listening to this, don't be afraid of taking a chance. I mean, that's why you've been successful. You keep taking chances. You keep putting yourself out there. And, some would call it luck, but for you, you put yourself in the right positions where, you could take advantage, right? It's like you're putting yourself around the right people. You're doing the right things. And I think a lot of people are like waiting for a big break. Well, to get a big break, you have to like be around where the breaks happen.
Absolutely.
So just go out there and put yourself in the right situations.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Cool, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. That was the Plotting Success Podcast, episode 1 with Ryan Pineda. Make sure you guys subscribe and stay tuned for next week.